Live on Zoom, going live on Facebook, live on Instagram, crossing all platforms now. Who'd have thought it? So, for today's live Biomechanics Q&A, we've got a couple of questions that have come in, and these are actually from a client perspective. And what I think is really important about client questions is we're often discussing client issues, maybe from a technician's perspective. So they're biomechanics. We come from a place of being educated around anatomy and how it works. But I think a really key component of us being able to engage and communicate with our clients, both online and face-to-face, is understanding the way they think and the way they understand their body to move. So if your client asks you a question like, how does hamstring tightness affect posture? While we may have a professional opinion around that, our job as a movement professional is to help our clients understand their body better. So I've got a couple of questions coming from Jake, and he was the instigator of the questions. A couple of weeks ago, we did a live Biomechanics Q&A back then, based on his questions again. He's asked me some more that tie in with that. If you went to that one, if you listened to that one. If you haven't listened to these Biomechanics Q&As each week, we've run them for free through the whole of lockdown periods. You can head on over to the Biomechanics Education YouTube channel, where there is all of the 25 or so biomechanics Q&As, and we've discussed everything from pain science to shoulder problems to the biomechanics of the hinge, all sorts of different discussions around biomechanics, human movement, and how we help our clients. A little bit about communication skills as well. But today, we're going to be talking about the very question, two questions that a client has asked to me, and that you may get asked by a client or your client. So they're common questions, and it's how we address them, help the client understand them, but also technically, as a practitioner, what we understand is actually going on within their body. So there's two levels, if you like, of conversation. So the first question we've got asked is, how does hamstring tightness affect posture? So first of all, I'm going to answer from a practitioner perspective. Any professionals out there who hear a client saying to them, how does hamstring tightness affect my posture? As a professional, in my head, my first question is, you're assuming your hamstrings are tight, what's causing the tightness, and also assuming that discussing posture is a simple matter, and we need to get to the two. Now, interestingly, Jake brought up the question around posture a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to address posture first of all. Posture is simply a position of the body, and there are a lot of discussions around good and bad posture. Well, if posture is just a position of the body, then I could do a bad posture, so round shoulder positioning is deemed a bad posture, but I'm okay, because I didn't sustain that particular position within my body for a prolonged period of time. So bad posture is more about a lack of variety in body positions. Bad posture is when we hold a static posture, whether it's standing, squatting, sitting, for any long periods of time. So a posture, a single posture, is not necessarily bad for us. So sitting isn't bad for you. It's sitting for a long time or not changing your posture or your position is really where the problem happens. Same with good posture. There isn't really a good posture, because if we stay in good posture for a long time, that's going to start to become quite uncomfortable. So coming back to the original question, how does hamstring tightness affect posture? That just sets up the idea of how does hamstring affect body position. So I'll come back to that one in a moment. The other key component within this client's question is hamstring tightness. So if a client was coming to me and saying their hamstrings were tight, the first thing I would want to address is, how do we know they're tight? What was the measurement for hamstring tightness? Is it actually a tightness of the hamstring muscle, or is it something else that's inhibiting the hamstring muscle, like a tight nerve, or something else? So to be able to test for tightness in the back of the thigh, we would need to address several things. We need to understand how much hip flexion a client is capable of with an extended knee. So we could do that in a supine posture using the SLR test or the straight leg raise test, for example, where a client is lying supine on the floor or on a massage bed, and we lock the knee into extension, we lift the leg so the hip is flexing, and we can measure the point at which they feel tension. So if you're familiar with that test, it's often described as a sciatic nerve test, but technically it's actually able to give us information which structure has more tension, the hamstring or the nerve. So if we think of that test in those two ways, it gives us more information than simply whether the tension is in the sciatic nerve. So when we bring the leg up, and if the client feels the tension in the hamstring area, in the back of the leg, then at that point, we actually don't know, is that the hamstring or is that the sciatic nerve? Because both of those structures have been lengthened through that action of hip flexion. And so what we want to do is to differentiate between it being the hamstring or the nerve. As a practitioner, I would then adduct the leg. By adducting the leg, if they feel the sensation in that hamstring change, that's indicative of a tight sciatic nerve rather than tight hamstrings. So then we want to address the nerve mobility. If when we adduct, the sensation doesn't change at all, then we can take that as that's probably the hamstrings. Because by adducting the leg, we're not really changing the range in the hamstring, the length in the hamstring, sorry, but we are definitely changing the length of the sciatic nerve. So that's where we can differentiate if it's a hamstring tightness or if it's a nerve tightness. If it's nerve tightness, we do nerve mobility. If it's hamstring tightness, we can address the muscle flexibility. So hopefully that was made clear. So I'm going to come back to the client question. How does hamstring tightness affect posture? If it's the hamstrings that are genuinely tight, how would that influence the way we are positioned? Well, in terms of posture, and I'm aware of the way this client has positioned the question, here's a desk worker who likes to lift weights. He is experiencing a round shouldered posture from sitting at a desk a lot. And so he's addressing that by going in the gym and strengthening the upper back, which we'll come to his second question in a moment. So this poor posture, or rather the sitting posture that Jake is using for prolonged periods, could actually mean that whilst he's sitting on those hamstrings, there's pressure against the hamstring and the nerve. So he could be experiencing either a hamstring tightness or a nerve tightness. So I'd want to test that first, Jake, to identify which one it is. Can the hamstring or the sciatic nerve tension in the back of the leg affect the way his body is feeling and his posture? Well, yes, it could, but probably not in this posture. If anything, if you have tension down the back of the leg, it would do the opposite. So I think where Jake is probably coming from, and again, if you've got a client with you, you can ask them all these questions. It may be because of symptoms, and I do know that Jake is experiencing symptoms in the upper neck or the back, the upper traps and the neck area. If the tension in the back of the hamstrings is a tight nerve, then yes, absolutely, that could contribute to what he's feeling in the neck, because the nervous system is a continuum through the entire body. So if his shoulders are lifting because he's using a keyboard, the nervous system really doesn't like this movement. Also, the pressure on the carpal tunnel or the median nerve in the wrist, that could irritate the nervous system up to the arm. He's then sitting on the back of the legs, the bottom, where the sciatic nerve passes through. And all of this posture of sitting could contribute to hamstring tightness or the sensation of hamstring tightness or a tight nerve. And therefore that could affect the posture because tension in the nerves if you've got a brachial plexus in the neck here. By lifting the shoulders, and this posture can then detension the median nerve in the arm. So you can see how the human biomechanics, the integrated system, and the way the nerves and the muscles and the joints can affect each other. So yes, to your question, Jake, let's come back to the client now. If I was responding to Jake and I had identified he's symptomatic in the shoulders, a little bit uncomfortable, he's sitting at a desk a lot, we suspect that he's got either a tight nerve or a tight hamstring, we don't know that yet. Can it affect his posture or vice versa? Yes, is the answer to the client's question. So really what the client wants is a solution. So we need to be able to communicate to the client in response to the question, how does the hamstring tightness affect posture, about long periods of time sitting. So I would be suggesting to Jake several things. One, to help with freedom of movement of the pelvis, to use I move freely techniques like a 4 sign to release the muscles of the hip, to take tension off the sciatic nerve at the hip. He could potentially use some spine mobility drills like the I move freely wall glides, lumbar tilts and knee rolls, just to get that lumbar spine moving again. He could use thoracic rotation drills and also potentially at some point a nerve mobilization technique. But really we want to get to the root cause, and the root cause is the desk life and that sort of sedentary posture or holding a position for long periods of time. So along with all of these techniques that he could actually do while sitting at his desk, I would want to encourage him to get a big pile of books maybe that he can sit the keyboard on top of, maybe have another set of books to sit the monitor on, so that he can stand while he's working, and then maybe every hour, a couple of hours, he takes one of the books away, so he comes down a little bit lower, and then he takes another one away, till he's back to sitting again. It might be, again, depending, on his work, that he could move that and put the computer, the monitor onto a chair and then kneel on the floor. So he's changing position regularly. Companies' HR departments are fully aware of the ergonomics affecting their clients' absenteeism down to, or they should, musculoskeletal issues like the one that Jake has been asking me about. And so it may be that they will buy you a sit-stand desk like this one, where I can bring the desk right down, and you can see my little mascot in the background there, working hard, Roxy. So I can come all the way down, and actually I can talk to you squatting down on my heels. And I can reposition the desk at a variety of heights. I might take it to chair height, and then I'll be sitting, and then I can move it up to standing height. So I'm permanently changing my position, my posture, whilst I'm working, even as I'm talking to you right now. So if Jake's organisation, company, was interested in occupational health, that would be a strong recommendation as a sit-stand desk. If you can't afford that, if that's not available to you, you just get a nice big pile of thick, chunky books, and you gradually add them in, or you take them away by sitting your computer on. So that's the first question that Jake asked. If you have any questions, obviously you can ask at any point during this video. Just having a quick look, see if there's any questions come through on hi, Instagram. Thanks for dropping by. And what I've got for you later on, by the way, is some dates for both free and low-cost webinars to give you great CPD. So if you hang on for those, I'll put those in later on. So Jake's second question, does focusing, really great question again, by the way, Jake, does focusing on strengthening the upper back mean that it can possibly cause a weakening of the lower back? So as I said earlier in the original point of these questions, is what we're trying to understand is the client's mindset. If we can't engage and communicate with the client in their world and their mindset, it's no good being technical. So I'm going to address the question from a technician's perspective for the practitioners first, And then what we'll do is we will answer the client's question simply, hopefully. So does focusing on strengthening the upper back potentially cause a weakening of the lower back? So as a practitioner, that kind of indicates to me that maybe the client is uncomfortable in the lower back. And again, if Jake was my client, I'd be asking lots of questions. But if their strengthening focus is on the upper back, then I would want to address that and make sure they're strengthening A, the antagonists at the front, B, the lower portion of the back and the front, and of course the sides, and of course the entire body. So I'd want to look at the whole system, understand the goals of the client, make them SMART, so they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, so that then we can help this client understand what's going on. But can strengthening one area of the body result in a weakening of another area of the body? Well, only probably if you're not addressing all areas of the body. So as a technician, we would need all of the details about the client to be able to respond proactively with their question. So coming back to Jake's question from the client's perspective, Jake, I want to know, are you doing strength work for the lower back? Is the reason for your question because your lower back is now uncomfortable since you've been working the upper back? I do know that Jake, we've spoken before, and he talked about when he goes to the gym and works on the upper body, the symptoms he feels in the upper body calm down. And so I think maybe, and I don't know, Jake, you can let me know, maybe he's getting some discomfort now in the lower back because it's all moved around. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It means that things are moving, which is less of a red flag than if it was very focused and in one place in terms of the sensation or pain or discomfort. So, Jake, I would want to look at your whole program, making sure you're not just overemphasizing the upper body because you're symptomatic here. And then what we can look at is how we can incorporate strength work into the whole of your body to give you a robust, integrated system that when you have a day job that means you're sitting for long periods, we address that as well. But we can make your gym program really specific to the problem. Now, there are a couple of questions in here. And Jake's talked about documenting his injury rehab on Instagram. And I think, obviously, Jake, I can't tell you what to do. I said, but one of the risks of a non-fit pro doing that, it may give the impression that you do know and that people would take what you're saying from a practitioner's perspective. If people follow your pathway, that might be the wrong thing for them, even though they have similar symptoms or they think they do. So where people post about injuries on social media, I think we've got to be really careful about how it's positioned. Because if people are watching that and they don't realise you're not a practitioner who's insured and within a remit to advise, they may take it as advice and follow what you're doing if you have great success with a particular technique. So it's entirely up to you, Jake, but maybe I can help you with that journey in the positioning of it through social media to be more appropriate to the way we help each other through the avenue of social media, because there is a limit. So while we've had lockdown experience of helping clients online, from that perspective, Jake, I think what I would need to do is guide you or help you along with that, and I'm happy to do that, to show people what's appropriate and what isn't through social media channels. If a trainer or practitioner has set up a professional service to deliver online, part of that would be a full PARQ, health PARQ, which is a physical activity readiness questionnaire. They'd have gone through a consultation. They would learn your medical history. So prior to coaching somebody on a video or 2D platform like this, they would have all the history and all the safety components. The risk assessment would have been set up. Any red flags would have been ruled out or ruled in and dealt with. And so there's a whole process that happens prior to coaching somebody online, rather than simply these little snippet videos, which really shouldn't be the way we take solutions to our problems. This is about generic information, and then individuals should get personal advice. And then finally, Jake's question, he was told, I think this is right, Jake, by your physio, that you get a flare-up, or you described it as a flare-up, when I think you get some extra sensations in the shoulders and the neck from not going to the gym and then being at a desk. And Jake asked what the scientific words for flare-up are, and there aren't any. I think flare-up is indicative of the symptoms have increased. So that might be, it's not a medical term, but I think that's what the therapist is trying to communicate when we get a flare-up, is when our body responds by complaining, either with symptoms or limitations. But I don't think there's any medical term, unless you've had a diagnosis, and then I have no idea. I need to understand what they said was actually medically the issue. So they're all the questions from today. I hope that's helped and been insightful for both practitioners and also anybody who's not a practitioner, maybe similar to Jake and me, who spend time at a desk, relatively sedentary. But just before I let you go, I've got 4 dates for your diary. So if you've got your diaries handy or a pen and paper, you like me, I'm a pen and paper girl. 4 dates for your diary in December. So we've just kicked off. So the next one, if you are an IBA member, if you're an Intrinsic Biomechanics Association member, on the 6th of December, between 10 and 12, for the members, we have a workshop about behaviour change that is especially for those members. So put that into your diaries. December the 8th, I will be presenting on behalf of SIMSPA. They're running these are for members again. If you're SIMSPA members, there is a member exclusive webinar series. There was 2 yesterday, there's 2 tomorrow. I'm doing one with Sarah Dunford of Les Mills next Tuesday, so the 8th, December the 8th, and then there's one on the Thursday following as well. They are 10 till 11:30, 2 30-minute webinars, all about business, getting back to face-to-face, staying online. And so the December the 8th, 10 till 11:30, my section, which is in the later half, is all about getting back to face-to-face, preparing our business to get back to face-to-face. And we may be doing that, we may be staying some online, some of you may be just purely staying online. It might still be interesting to join that workshop. If you are a SIMSPA member, you can do that, just head on over if you haven't heard already. The next date is December the 9th. Now, those are free, by the way. December the 9th is normally £27. This is a working with clients with shoulder issues webinar, and I'm partnering with the Body Mapper to do a 2-hour workshop, CPD workshop, about working with clients with shoulder issues. We've already got around 50 learners booked on, and it's normally £27. We're running it at 17 because we're still in lockdown-ish. So you can still grab that. If you head on over to Instagram, you can go onto my link tree in the bio. You can head on over there and you can find it in there. If you're on Facebook, you can head on, or on Zoom, you can head on over to Instagram and you can purchase it there. Or you can go to the website, biomechanicseducation.com, click on the workshops, online workshops, scroll through the page and you'll see working with clients with shoulder issues. So the Body Mapper is going to do some amazing anatomy learning around the shoulder using his system, 5-step system to learning anatomy. Then I'm going to teach you how to assess and strengthen shoulder function and biomechanics in your clients, which is a nice little system. And if you listen to the system, you can apply it to any area of the body. And then finally, another freebie, free CPD workshop on December the 11th. We're partnering with Pulse Roll and Helen Pybus and myself between 10:30 and 12:30. We're going to be, or Helen is going to introduce you to the benefits of using vibration tools from Pulse Roll in a session. And I'm going to follow it up again with anatomy, assessment and exercise of the biomechanics of each area that she demonstrates on. So December 6th, December 8th, December 9th, December 11th. If you missed any of that, ping me a message Otherwise, let me know if you've got any questions. We have now got a Biomechanics Q&A Facebook page. So if you go into Facebook, type in Biomechanics Q&A, it should come up. You can join. It's an open for everyone, and you can ask a question at any time. And those questions actually feed nicely into these lives. If you want any more, let me know. If I don't get any more questions, I will leave the lives and just stick with the Facebook group. But thanks for joining us. Jake, I hope that was helpful for you. Everybody on Instagram, Zoom and Facebook, I hope that's helped you as well. I'm always here if you want to chat about anything human movement related, aren't we? And head on over to the website for some anatomy blogs, some anatomy videos around the muscles, the bones, the movements, if you're really interested in that stuff. And coming soon, more communication resources for soft skills, getting back to face-to-face. So have a great day, guys. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye.